Welcome to the Beyond Barriers podcast. If you're an ambitious woman who wants to advance in leadership, then this podcast is for you. This podcast is co-hosted by Nikki Barua, digital innovator, serial entrepreneur, author, and speaker, and Monica Marquez, senior corporate leader, ex-Googler, and diversity expert. From inspiring stories to cutting-edge strategies, you'll learn how to develop the skill set, mindset, and tool set to get future-ready fast and accelerate your success. What does career success look like? That can be a difficult question to answer if you haven't stepped back to understand how to actually measure your success or understand what success looks like in the environment or organization to which you currently belong. In this podcast, our guest, Indhira Arrington, Managing Director and Global Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Aries Management, shares with us the 3 critical things she identified to be present in all the successful people she encountered. Indhira describes success as a 3-legged stool. The first leg is all about honing your talent. The second is refining your executive presence. And the third comes as a result of the other 2 legs, gaining sponsorship from senior leaders. In her role at Aries, Indhira partners with the firm's DEI Council to advance Aries' strategy to attract, develop, engage, and advance diverse talent within an inclusive, welcoming environment, along with advancing equity in the broader alternative asset management industry. She also serves as an advisor to support DEI initiatives at portfolio companies across Aries' investment strategies. In this episode, Indhira shares her methodology for success, how to refine your executive presence, and why it's important to cultivate your personal group of advocates and advisors. Visit iambeyondbarriers.com, where you'll find show notes and links to all the resources in this episode, including the best way to get in touch with Indhira. Welcome, Indhira. Thank you so much for joining us on the Beyond Barriers podcast. I am thrilled to have you here because you and I go way back to our days at Bank of America. But even before that, getting to know each other during as members of Alpha and whatnot. So I am excited to have you on the show because I know our audience are going to love to hear your story and all of the wonderful knowledge that you always imparted on me. So let's share with them a little bit about who are you, what has your journey been, and now that you've landed where you are.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I wish we were in person so we could hug and kiss and adore each other. We usually do when we see each other. So Indhira Arrington, and I am an immigrant from the Dominican Republic. I've been here permanently since high school. And me and my siblings are all first generation college grads. So, growing up in a household that really lived on the culture, on, get your work done, on make sure you're doing the best at school, and the best means straight A's, is really core to my being. I'm a mom of 2 boys, a 10 and an 8-year-old, and I've been married to my husband Cameron for 13 years. So it's been amazing to sort of take some of the same aspects of parenting from my parents and try to instill it in our boys. Mm-hmm. Being an immigrant, I'm also ESL, English as a second language. So right. My first language was Spanish, and English is my primary language. And it's been fun trying to continue to refine my own communication and executive presence through the years from a language perspective. Mm-hmm. Some of the other things that I would point out when I think about life, I truly believe in that saying that good is the enemy of great, right? I don't want things to just be good enough, which could be super helpful in some scenarios and could also hurt you in others. Yes. And from a career perspective, I consider myself jokingly a recovering banker. I spent the first 12 years of my career in the industry, specializing in structured products and equity derivatives. In my last line role, I was an equity derivative sales trader at Morgan Stanley. And then I moved into diversity and inclusion. And I've been doing DEI for the past almost 12 years as well, specifically within big financial institutions. And when I tell people about my journey, how is it that an immigrant like me is now the chief diversity officer at Aries, I always say that it all spans on sponsorship from organizations and individuals that really took an interest in me and helped me see the bigger picture, and that I could do more than I thought possible, and helped open doors for me and support me through those transitions. So I started my career as an Inroads intern.
Yes.
Inroads was the first organization that, senior year in high school, you apply, you get in, they make you spend every Saturday in the summer with them.
I'm so glad you brought that up, though, because Inroads is truly, it does help people with inroads, especially when you're first generation college, first generation corporate, and you don't know what you don't know. Organizations like that are fantastic.
Fantastic. I mean, I would not be where I am. And I think what's interesting about organizations like Inroads is that they not only give you the access and the entryway into corporate, but they also support you on how to show up, right? It's everything from dress to success. How do you use all these forks and knives at this table? To, the habits of highly effective people. So they really take you at a very young age, at 18, and really start to give you the foundation and mold you into what you're going to need to really succeed within corporate America. And of course, they give you that first job, which everybody needs to be able to really start to build your resume and grow. But that was just the first organization. The other piece with Inroads is you get those mentors and you get that support network that's really going to be there for you and help coach you within the firms when you're there. Business school, consortium. Yes. I could not have gone to business school and gone through that whole process without consortium.
Yes.
Another organization that sponsors great talent. I'm also honorary Twigo. It's been amazing to be able to, again, work with such an organization, not only to bring in talent to the organizations that I was working in, but also get access to that amazing network of folks and learn from so many people. So when I think about my career, it's really about those organizations that really helped sort of support me, get me in, and then propel me into these positions, and the folks within them that served as sponsors, and more importantly, taught us about how to build your own. And everybody calls it the board of directors, but how to build your crew that's going to really be there for you and open doors for you, and support you. Like organizations like Alpha, where we've had the opportunity to support through Women of Alpha.
Yes.
So for me, I feel very, very blessed. And I know that I'm standing on the shoulders of so many people and organizations and individuals like the Eric Irish Browns of the world, that without I wouldn't be where I am. So when I think about my transition into DEI, it's really about, how do I do that for others? How do I now open door for others and pull others up the ladder with me along my journey, and to be able to have a role where you're able to do that and get paid for it and have the impact that you can have on the culture of organizations is just it's a blessing. I'm not saying it's not hard work, and you don't have your challenges every other day, but seeing the difference that you can make in people's lives is invaluable to me. And because so much has been given to me, I try to, give back to others through everything from board leadership. I think it's really important for us to give back and share our talents in the nonprofit space as well with these types of organizations that support others.
That's such a fantastic journey. And you've touched on so many things, like you said, that helped you become successful. And through your journey, you've shared with me before your framework, your kind of methodology or your theory of what success is. So share that for the audience, because that's extremely important. And I think the way that you frame it is so easy and to digest and so tangible that you remember these things. And it's like, okay, I know how to move forward. So enlighten me, please.
I don't know if it's enlightening, but I will try. Listen, I feel I've been very lucky to be able to be from very early on through, inroads, starting in corporations at the age of 18, to see and be around a lot of people at the most senior levels who have succeeded. And it dawned on me that when I think about what is it that they all have in common, what is it that really propelled them to the top? That it's really three things. When you look at super successful people at the top of any organization, regardless of industry, the first one is talent, right? At the end of the day, they're either super smart, super hardworking, and they have really become the subject matter expert of their domain, whatever that domain may be. So when you think about that, what does that mean? That means that you are giving your all to everything that you do. You're going above and beyond, and you're not just working hard, but you're working hard smartly. So it's smart, hard work that's making a difference for them. And I think when you think of the concept of like a three-legged stool, that would be the first leg of the stool. The second one is that elusive executive presence that everybody talks about. They just act, sound, and look like a leader. And I really like Sylva Ann Hewlett has a great book on executive presence and really unpacks it in a very digestible way into three things. It's gravitas, it's communication, and it's appearance. So for me, are you being the best version of yourself? Are you honing? And again, none of those things are innate. You can work on all of them. Are you honing your own leadership style and becoming the best version of yourself, because everybody else is taken? So how are you showing up? And I think that if you take those two levels of the legs of the stool, the talent and the executive presence, you can then earn sponsorship. So back to my journey, I think sponsorship is what's going to make a differential impact in your ability to continue to move up within organizations. And everyone needs those powerful sponsors that can propel and protect you as you're moving up within an organization. So when you combine those three, to me, those are the three things, if you were to think about it, that you need to work on. And none of them you're born with, which means we can all get there, but it takes smart, hard work in order to do so.
And that's so amazing, because you do have to work on all three of those to have like this sturdy, stable stool that you can actually sit or stand on in some cases, right? Now, tell me a little bit, because the talent piece is so important, like you said, in terms of, for us, when we work with our women in the Beyond Barriers Accelerator, we're always talking about, really the concept of conviction, but not conviction in what you're doing, but conviction in staying ahead of the game, becoming that subject matter expert, and realizing that what got you here is not going to get you there. And you've got to constantly be thinking about what are the next level competencies that I have to do or gain so that I am that subject matter expert. Talk a little bit about, you as, you yourself, in terms of how did you make sure that you stayed ahead of the game? What were some of your daily habits or rituals, or what is it that you do to stay ahead and know, like, okay, you're not going to get surprised out of left field or what's coming around the corner that's going to disrupt your workspace?
That's a great question. And there's such a connection between talent and being that subject matter expert and actually being able to exhibit executive presence, right? And have that confidence and be able to show up and act like the leader and be assertive in your ideas and have that conviction. Reading. At the end of the day, nothing's going to be staying ahead of the curve of what's happening in your industry through reading and searching out opportunities to continue to upskill yourself.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example of me. It was crazy, that transition from the business to HR. It was the hardest transition that I've made so far. I was the proverbial bull in the china shop because I could not understand, I'm coming from an environment where literally you're trade after trade after trade. It's quick, bounded hours. We're going to get this done. Decision. It's an environment where things are a lot slower. Processes are a lot slower. There's a bigger need to gain buy-in, and coming into that role thinking, well, what most people think, well, I'm diverse, I should be able to do DEI. I found myself starting to feel that imposter syndrome. Did I make a mistake? Do I belong here?
Right.
And part of those first few years was, number one, again, back to the network, finding folks that were already doing, that were willing to spend the time with me to help me get grounded.
Yes.
2, it was understanding that DEI, like everything else in life, is a function, and there's a lot to learn. And 3 is finding the resources to garner that knowledge. So I devoured research papers from every organization, from Harvard, Stanford, every research. I found the top DEI experts in the industry. I went way back and then tried to understand what Ted Childs was talking about. Yeah. In the 70s. Like I literally had to think about this and really understand that it's actually a change management function to truly become proficient and be able to make a difference in the space. And then I went to Cornell. Cornell has a Cornell Certified Advanced Practitioner Program for diversity. It took me 3 years. In the last year, I was pregnant with my second. I had to write.
I remember.
I was like, why am I have to take a test? Like, there's tests now? I was past this. I had to write a thesis. I had to go through that whole thing. But not only did it give me sort of that confidence to say, yes, you're great. You know what you're doing. You have the right instincts. You have the gut instincts that you need for this job. But it also gave me the credibility with others as well. So that's very specific to me, but there's a version of that for every job and for every industry. The other one is look above you. If you want to be 2 jobs up, what is it that the people that are in those seats have that you don't?
Yes.
And you have to do that gap analysis for yourself and determine, I have these gaps. How am I going to fill them? And you have to work with your manager to come up with the projects, the ideas, what else you can do outside of your day job to fill those gaps. Because at the end of the day, you have to earn sponsorship and you have to earn that next level up. No one's gonna give it to you. And if somebody gives it to you, it's gonna be that much harder to be successful in the role.
Right. That's so important that you said in terms of looking up and that gap analysis. I mean, that's something that we teach and we coach to in our accelerator program, because it's easy to say, identify the gap analysis. But like you said, then you have to find out who can tell you how to gain those competencies and also create or open up those opportunities for you, or you creating them. And so really the how to do it, I think, is so important, that you kind of, you scratch the surface and saying, it's not just identifying I need to do X, but then it's just like, okay, well, how do I actually do X, and who can help me gain that X? And that's where you said the sponsorships are so important. Learning to, manage up with your managers, or getting your managers to help you do that, right? Enlisting your managers, because they're not going to do it for you. And I remember when working at Goldman, hearing, Lloyd say at one time that you have two jobs. You have your day job and you have your career that you have to manage. And if you're allowing your managers or other people to, take hold of your career for you, then it's not going to align with your true north. So you have to take charge of that and manage your own career. So share a little bit about that. Like you said, I love when you talk about managing your manager. So talk a little bit about that.
Listen, if you're not managing your manager, you're failing yourself and you're failing them. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, your manager has the biggest impact on how you get developed, how you continue to advance, and more importantly, how do you feel every day when you come to work? Mm-hmm. And being able to feel every day when you come to work like you have somebody who cares about you, has your back, mm-hmm. and your best interest means you're going to show up and do your best work.
Right.
And it's going to make it easier to show up and do your best work when you have that, back to diversity and inclusion, that inclusive environment where you feel like you belong, right, and you have the opportunity to continue to move up. So managing your manager is about having very clear goal conversations with your manager, not just the immediate for this project or for this year, but here's how I'm thinking about my career for the next 3 years. Here is sort of where I want to be. Here's the type of roles. And you'll be surprised when you have those type of conversations with your manager, they may actually bring up other avenues, other roles, other mm-hmm. Career opportunities that you didn't even think were a possibility, or that you didn't even know, right, could be something that you would have an interest in. All of a sudden, it does pique your interest. You don't ever want to not get the promotion or not get that next job. And when you go to your manager and you say, why didn't you think of me? For them to be like, I didn't know you wanted to do that. I thought you
exactly.
were. Like, what are you talking about? That should never happen. And if it happens, it's your fault, mm-hmm. right? Because to like what Lloyd said, you are not managing your career and you're not managing your manager. Mm. Now, it's hard to manage your manager if you're not open to very constructive and direct feedback.
Yes.
Because, I'm a crier. I like people. I want to be liked. I want to be loved. I give my all. And when it's not enough, it hurts my feelings. So I know that I have to be extra with my managers to say, how am I doing? Check in a lot. When they give me constructive feedback, let them know that, yes, I'm sad, but I want more, and have that open line of communication. Because when you don't, what ends up happening is when you think about compounding interest and how good compounding interest could be for your money,
yes,
lack of actionable in the moment feedback has the opposite effect of compounding interest, to the negative. Because every time your manager or someone on your team doesn't feel comfortable coaching you in the moment, and they wait till you ask 3 months later or at the 6 month, review, mm-hmm. you've wasted 6 months where you could have been course correcting and developing that skill set and learning how to style flex if it was a style issue, mm-hmm. improving your communications if it was a delivery issue. You literally waste time, which means that you're that much further now from being able to get to that next level.
I'm so glad that you pointed that out, because, it's that ongoing feedback that helps you course correct every day. And even if you're just 1 or 2 degrees off, that's important, because if you wait 6 months, that 1 or 2 degrees means that you went way off to the trajectory where you could have just course corrected 1 or 2 degrees and stayed on target to your North Star. And that's extremely important. And I love what you said in terms of, You have to make it easy for not just your managers, but sponsors and everybody to give you feedback. And like you, I'm a crier, because there are times I'd come to you and say, oh my God, and this and that. And you would slap me around saying, hey, but at least you know now what you need to fix, right? But you learn to develop a relationship with your managers and your leaders to say, like, listen, I may tear up, but just keep on giving it to me. Like, even in the moment, in that conversation, even if you see my face go flat, like I've seen a ghost, and you see tears welling up, I don't want you to stop. And so then you give them permission, and then they know, they're like, okay, they'll roll up their sleeves and say, okay, here we go. But then you start developing that thicker skin where you're like, okay, I've been through this before. I'm getting the feedback, I'm correcting, and I'm letting them know. And then you're getting the positive reinforcement. So then you're realizing, like, okay, keep giving this to me because I'm getting better and better. I love that and I hope our listeners hear this, because we all don't like feedback, but Nikki Nikki, my partner, is always telling me, feedback is a gift. And you've got to accept it like it's Christmas morning, and just like, thank you so much because you actually care about me and you're giving me a gift. If they didn't care, they wouldn't give you the feedback, and they would let you kind of like crash and burn. But it's really people who are invested in you that give you the feedback. I love that so much.
And you have to get people invested in you, right? The only way that your manager is going to give you the access to, their manager's manager, put you in front of folks to give you exposure, is if they're truly bought in and they feel that you are giving your all, and that you have their back.
Yes. Right.
That your number one job, and I always say this, is to make your manager look good.
Yes.
Every day. How do I make my manager look amazing through my work? Because once they own what you actually do and what you deliver, then it's a true partnership. And then you get that buy-in where they are now bought into trying to make you successful as well. And once they have that ownership, it changes everything.
What if you could pinpoint the invisible ceilings limiting your success? Imagine having clarity on your strengths and barriers so you can take action and gain unstoppable momentum to advance as a future-ready leader. Well, that's exactly what the Beyond Barriers quiz will help you discover. You'll get your personalized score based on the 25 essential elements proven to accelerate success in the digital age, so you can understand what's holding you back and where to focus your efforts. The Beyond Barriers quiz is completely free and takes just a few minutes. Go to iambeyondbarriers.com/quiz and take the quiz today.
Shifting gears a little bit, we've talked about how important, managing your manager, but then also gaining sponsorship and those mentors. And you and I both know, there's a fine line between mentors and sponsors. But the other question I get a lot from women, and one of these, it's also one of the things that I feel like holds them back, is they don't leverage their community or their network the way they should. They don't really develop those sponsorship type of relationships. Share a little bit about that. What's your theory on sponsorships, and how do you earn sponsorship? It's not just like tapping someone saying, hey, be my sponsor. What is that process? How did you gain your sponsorships?
So it all starts with talent and delivering, right? And like I said, I don't think talent is innate. I think we all start out at different places, but we can all, through that smart, hard work, get there. It's going above and beyond with every project, and it's doing more than just your day job. Right? It's really looking across and seeing, what else is happening across our team that needs to get done, and there's no one to do it right now. It's taking on that additional initiative and really being thoughtful about how can we bring innovation to our team that are going to lead to better results. So most people, when they think about their job, it's like their fixed responsibilities, and they want to, excel at the three things that they're responsible for, and never look sideways in either direction, or across to see, how could what I'm doing be connected to this, better connected to that, and make a broader impact than just delivering this piece of work. There's always work that needs to get done. There's never enough people to do it. Are you raising your hand?
That's perfect.
And are you putting yourself in positions where people can actually see you do it? Because our issue is that we've been taught to put your head down, work really hard, and we expect somebody to notice us, and good things will come. And when they don't, we sit around crying like, I did everything I was supposed to do, except that nobody knows you did it. Yeah. So let's be clear, you also have to be able to showcase the value that you're bringing to the organization, showcase the impact of your work, because nobody's thinking about you.
Exactly. It's an art of self-promotion, right? Because you're right. Culturally, as Latinas, I remember, when, I moved to the big city and my family was so proud of me, and they're like, Mija, just keep your head down and work really hard and you'll go places. And I learned really quickly that in the, in the halls of a corporate world, no, you've got to pick your head up and you've got to learn to self-promote and gain that visibility. And it's hard to do. It's hard to do. It's hard, and it's harder for women and people of color. And let's just stick to women, because when the men do it, it's embraced. It's like, he's a go-getter. When we do it, it's like, there she goes showing off. Here, Yes. Thank you for saying that.
It's all about her. Here she goes parading around that this got done, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an art. I like that you called it the art of self-promotion, because it truly is an art. And the way that you do it is going to be different depending on the culture of your organization. What I loved about the business was that there was a stack rank. You knew what your gross credits were every day, and were you number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? There was, much easier to point to. Yeah.
Here are my results.
Yes, that's me. I dropped that mic. That was me. It is in other industries, right? In other functions, in other jobs. Which is why it's so important to ensure that you understand how your role impacts the broader strategy. Because once you know how your role impacts the broader strategy and you start to expand that impact, then it's much easier to say, hey, our overall team goal was X. Here's how I contributed to it. And there's nothing wrong or more amazing than reporting out your results. Yes. If you set a cadence, then it forces you to have to do it. And nobody's surprised when you come with your PowerPoint, here's what we accomplished this quarter. And it becomes a much natural way of doing so. So I think the part one is make sure you set a cadence so that it makes it easier and it forces you to showcase what's happening within your team and in your job. And then figure out ways when you're asking for feedback in the moment. Hey, boss, so, I accomplished X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. Is there anything else that I could have done better? What could I have done differently?
Yes.
But when you put it in the context of asking for feedback, they have to actually say, oh, so you did do that. Oh, let me think about that. Oh, you actually did do a great job. Or here's what I could have done better. And there you've planted the seed that the work got done and put them in a space to actually evaluate and recognize it, which most people don't do.
Right. No, they don't take that opportunity. And I love that example that you used, because that's how you are self-promoting in that sense, where you're like, hey, manager, we completed this project and, what is your feedback? And that, like you said, gets them to stop and think of like, yes, here's an accomplishment you had, and here's how you can make it better. And then that's just going to help you do the next project better. And they're just going to start seeing that compounding, just you getting better and better. It's that compounding effect, like you said, of it being positive because it's a continuous conversation. One thing I do want to mention, though, that, I think is super important, and you and I did it for ourselves, was that it's hard for individually to self-promote for yourself. But when you have strong relationships and friendships, like you and I did in organizations, it would be like playing each other up and me being your cheerleader and you're being mine. I think that's also really important that women don't leverage a lot, so that behind closed doors, when you may not be in that room, that you have cheerleaders there who are going to talk you up, or in some cases, defend you, or saying, hey, Monica worked on that project, or Indhira worked on that project too, or something of the sort, where people won't forget.
So let's look at the playing field.
Yes.
Absolutely need sponsors, right? Yes. We talked a lot about sponsors. You absolutely need mentorship. And, you said earlier, there's a fine line between the two. I think there's a big street between the two.
Yes.
Right? You can ask for mentorship. You can find mentors. The relationship should be a little more personal and open and about your skill set, how you could show up better, your executive presence, your communication. Mm-hmm. You have that. Sponsors are opening doors and giving you jobs and protecting you, right? So there's that. Uh-huh. But there's this gap in the middle of advocates,
yes,
where an advocate might be a peer, an advocate might be a peer in another group, an advocate might be, someone above you within the group, but not not the head of the group.
Yes.
And you need advocates everywhere. And that's a group that very few people spend the time to cultivate.
Yes.
It's not just enough that your manager knows what you're doing, because your manager is one person. It's mm-hmm. building your cheerleading squad, your advocates across the organization that are going to make a difference, which means, back to managing your career, that it's a job. You got to take time to build those advocates. You and I were advocates for each other.
Yes.
At Bank of America. I knew what you were doing and continue to be. You knew what I was doing. I knew what you were doing. So those advocates may not be the people who can open that next job for you, but they can definitely, when somebody says your name, have something great to say and advocate for you.
Right.
And if you don't have advocates, first of all, it's not that much fun to be at work. You have very few people to celebrate with, and mm-hmm. when you need that helping hand or that touch base or that sounding board, you don't have that.
Right.
So we really have to focus on creating a broader network. And what because I'm big on research, and what the research has found is that women's networks are smaller, and they're primarily women.
Mm-hmm.
Men's networks are bigger, and they're broader, and they're not primarily men.
Right.
The majority are, but then they sprinkle in everything else.
Yes.
So what does that mean? We know that sponsorship is a power relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And who in most corporate organizations are the people in power? Men.
Right. Yes.
So here we are as women, holding ourselves back because we're creating these smaller insular networks and not spreading the love and letting others experience us and learn about us in order to be able to advocate for us.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And that's so important, because it's actually so aligned to what we really try to help the women who go through the Beyond Barriers program. When we kind of talk about community, we tell them, like, it's this, if you imagine kind of like this circle that looks like a target, you have circles within circles. And like you said, women have a small insular circle. but there's other layers of the circle that you need to make sure you develop people so that when you have an opportunity or there's something that you were trying to solve for, that you can look in those outer circles to see who can help me and pull those people into your inner circle. And it flows back and forth through your careers, right? And so women have this tendency to, feel like, for lack of a better term, they're like, it's this icky feeling to ask for help or to seek out the relationship because you need help. But it's what men do. It's, and it's, you can't think of it of just taking. It is this idea of reciprocity. What can I do to help this person? And how can they help me? And so you're not like just, you're not just like who's a giver, who's a taker. It's like, no, you go to this relationship, you keep nurturing those relationships to leverage them at some point. And I always ask people, like, when I go ask you a favor, you never, like, you immediately are like, yes, I totally want to help you. You're bought into it. And when people ask me, I'm, in some cases, you're flattered that they're asking you to help. But we forget, like, we don't want to ask other people. And so now I have to tell myself, you know what? If I don't go ask Indhira for help with this, I'm robbing her of the opportunity to contribute and to help me out. So I have to look at it that way now to kind of, get over this idea of like, asking people for help. What are your thoughts?
That men have no shame when they need.
It's true.
And we got to learn when they need something, they're going to figure out who can help them. Mm-hmm. How they're going to get that ticket, how they're going to get this reservation, how they're going to get this promotion, how they're going to get introduced to this person because that might be their ticket, their sponsorship opportunity. Mm-hmm. How do I go to this golf outing? Because I know these clients, and we need to look and learn. Yeah. Look and learn from them. But here's what's interesting. What's interesting is one of my team mottos is always be in the service of others.
Yes.
So even with, my number one job is to make my manager look good, always be in the service of others. How can you help other people? Mm-hmm. While you're out there trying to help other people and being in the service of others, you're creating advocates, you're building those relationships that make it a little less icky when you need some support, when you have a question, when you need help. And I think we put ourselves in a position where we think we have to make it on our own or it's not success. Yes. The proverbial, I put myself up by my own bootstraps. That never happens.
Right. It doesn't last very long if it does, right?
That never happens. No one has ever made it by themselves. So what does that mean? How many people are we willing to help along our journey? And how many people are we willing to bring into our sphere? And by always approaching things on how can I be in the service of others, it's the universe. All of a sudden, everything comes back twofold for you. And by the way, while you're showcasing your ability to help others and sponsor others, you're showcasing your own leadership skills. Mm.
Well, that was the perfect close and words of advice for our audience. Indhira, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time and, sharing your pearls of wisdom with everyone. And really love the three-legged stool framework. And I know that'll be one that'll stick in my mind and stick in other listeners' minds as well. I know that our listeners are going to want to know more or get to know you more. So what's the best way for them to follow you on LinkedIn? I'm sure that, the three-legged stool thing is something that's going to intrigue them and want to hear more from you.
LinkedIn is great.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Barriers podcast. There are thousands of podcasts out there, and we are so grateful that you've chosen to listen to ours. If you enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and tell a friend about it. And subscribe to get new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Visit IamBeyondBarriers.com, where you'll find show notes, links, and the best way to connect with our guests. See you next episode.